And welcome back. Young Invincibles work tirelessly to amplify the voices of the younger generation, ensuring that they not only participate fully in the democratic process, but also have the opportunities necessary to reach their highest potential. Sharing with us now, we've got the Northeast Regional Director of Young Invincibles, Sean Miller. And Sean, good to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Hey, thanks a lot for sharing with us. And listen, when we talk about what's happening today, obviously the news of the day is, we've got a debate that's taking place, that just taking place. A lot of political engagement is going on right now. The push for people to get out and vote, but yet and still to engage young people in the political process and then on as a part of what you do. Share with us a little bit about this here because you're trying to amplify the voice of young adults here.
Yeah, that's right. So the key is ensuring that young adults in our generations are actively engaged and that we're meeting them where they're at. And so we have to connect with young adults in a variety of ways in different capacities and coming to them in places that they already exist. Further, reinforcing that their voice matters and young adults, we have power. They have power, we have power, and it's critical to continually ensuring that they're actively engaged. Especially because young people are a vastly underrepresented constituency in politics, right? But there are a lot of ways that we can and we are fighting for representation. And as the late, great Shirley Chisholm said, when they don't give us a seat at the table, we have to bring a folding chair. But we are working to carve out permanent seats for young adults at every table of power.
And when we talk about bringing your own seat to the table, that's exactly what you've done and are aiming to do. Really put somebody there, be engaged, be involved in this process, and you're equally as important and equally a part of it. That's part of the message that you're sharing with young adults to really be able to do that. Talk to me about the receptivity right now, because honestly, in this heightened partisan political environment, you got a lot of millennials who are saying, "Listen, I'm checked out. I'll do my vote, but I really, when it comes to being politically engaged, checked out." Talk to me about what you're seeing with boots on the ground as far as young adults and political engagement.
Yeah. So to your point, a lot of people are very frustrated and have been for a long time because of the lack of access for young adults to microphones, to places where they can amplify their voices, amplify their concerns, see their issues represented in the debate stage, in the political process, and see ourselves right in the halls of power. And so a lot of people are very frustrated, but there's also a lot of civic engagement that's happening right now. A lot of people are becoming much more engaged, and a lot of folks are, coming of voting age for the first time and very excited to cast their ballot. A lot of folks in our programs, right, are learning about how they can impact the political process, not just at the ballot box, but all the time in between elections, right? There's a lot of work, there's a lot of organizing that we can do. And part of our work here at Young Invincibles is to empower young folks and educate them about the ways in which they can impact the political process and amplify their voices at every level of government, right? So we work at the city level, we work at the state level, we work at the federal level. We work with a lot of students on campus that may be part of their student government. So there's a lot of levels at which we can impact that process and teach young folks that, hey, your voice has power. And the more you exercise that power, the easier it's going to become.
How do you go about getting somebody to get from that local level to really drive them towards social change? I mean, there's some work that goes on. Take us behind the scenes because that's a process all by itself. We see a lot of people sometimes emerge on the social scene, but the reality is there's so much back work that happens on the local side. Talk to us about that local push to really get people out there.
Absolutely. One of the things that we do is run something called the Young Advocates Program. And this is a paid leadership program developed by Young Invincibles. So we work with our regional offices in Texas, California, Colorado, Illinois, here in New York as well, and at the national level to strengthen the voices of young people on our issue areas across the country. And this program is a great opportunity for young folks ages 18 to 34 to develop skills and gain experience in core functions of advocacy and public policy work as they build, overall professional skills as well. So throughout the program, we help train young folks on how to effectively advocate and be a leader. That means being a leader on their campus, right? That means advocating on policies that are affecting them right now. We also engage them in policy work, giving them opportunities to talk with elected officials, to testify before the legislature, to raise concerns on issues that they care about. And advocates leave the program as an expert and take these skills into their career and their educational journey. And we hope to continue working with young adults and providing them with opportunities to share their story. And long term, we're empowering not just the leaders of tomorrow, right? You hear a lot of people say young folks are the future, but we're also the present. We're also, the now. And there's a lot of things that are going on now, and there's a lot of issues that we're working to combat right now. And through our Young Advocates program and our broader campaigns that we work on, that the Young Advocates help lead, we really empower them to get involved in these campaigns, to put boots on the ground, to organize, to get their friends involved. Everything from social media campaigns to working on legislation or helping to propose a new idea to city council. So there's a lot of different ways young folks can get involved. And our Young Advocates program is one of our main pipelines that we try to amplify young folks, empower them, and give them the tools to be a leader in their own communities and campuses.
One of the things that drives this is there has to be this sense of belonging. I mean, before you can get somebody to get to a place of being socially active, politically active, civically engaged, there has to be this cultivation of feeling like you belong, understanding your place, understanding that. Take me into the back room again. How are you going about, I should say, doing this? Because this is really the foundational crux for all this other stuff.
Yeah, great question. Belonging is really key, and collaboration and community are actually two of our values here at Young Invincibles and cornerstones of our work. So to create a safe and brave space, as we like to call it, where students can be vulnerable and open to reframing how we work. So we take a step back, we listen to young adults. We want them to know that they have the floor and they are leaders, right? We respect their voice, we respect their experiences, we respect their opinion. They are experts, right, in this work. They're experts on their experience and what's going on campus. As we work with diverse communities and work collaboratively, we also adopt an equity-based approach to ensure that we have community agreements that allow young folks to be comfortable and to be confident sharing, especially because so many of the folks that we work with in our programs are from very diverse backgrounds, right? New York City is one of the most diverse places in the country. So we have students who speak various different languages, who are coming from all over the world. The vast majority of them are coming from low-income backgrounds. The vast majority are actually women of color in our programs. So we want to make sure that everyone feels that sense of belonging, that everyone feels that sense of you're here and we want you to be here. And we want to hear your voice. We want to hear your opinion. But we also have to make sure that everyone's respecting everyone else's voice and opinion. And having those community agreements, right, is one key way that we do that. And to create a sense of belonging and mutual agreement, it takes time. You have to build trust. It's not immediately given when you enter the program. And so, we learn and we grow with each new cohort that we have every semester. We get to know them a lot. We also often share our own stories, right? I'm someone that has $65,000 worth of student loan debt, right? I'm in this fight because it impacts me too. And I think the more that we're able to open up and, meet them where they are, they see and respect that. But really, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of intentionality to make sure that everyone feels comfortable being vulnerable and sharing their story.
Yeah, $65,000. I felt that, bro. I'm praying for you there. Talk to me about this conversation here. That in order to affect change, you definitely need the partnership of government, local government, local government, national government. So when we talk about city, state, national government, forging those partnerships are very critical to get your ball across the finish line. What's it been like for you in terms of that partnership, and how receptive has government been to the plight of young adults?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, it's been tough. As I mentioned before, young adults are a underrepresented constituency, and we're not automatically given a seat at the table a lot of the time, right? There are some systemic ways that we have some representation built in, such as for student government, right? But the ability to participate in student government on campus, we recognize that that's also a privilege that a lot of students who are struggling with basic needs, with managing being a student and being a parent or having a full-time or part-time job, it's difficult. So we do work a lot with every level of government. At the city level, we partner with the city council, and we've had some great receptivity there, especially working with the New York City Higher Education Committee. We regularly testify before the New York City Council there and uplift student voices. At the state level, we do a lot of work with the state legislature, from members of the assembly to members of the Senate. In terms of local city government, it's been, I'll be honest, it's been tough working with this mayoral administration. There haven't been a lot of natural opportunities to partner. We're always looking for more. And then at the gubernatorial level, we've recently forged some inroads and working with them on a couple key issues that are impacting young folks, such as access to financial aid and FAFSA support, especially since this is the first year that New York's going to have this new universal FAFSA policy that we were very proud to help pass. And then at the federal level, same thing. We're always working to build and strengthen our relationships with members of Congress. There's a couple that we have great relationships with and work with, and are able to help introduce bills in the House and occasionally in the Senate on. And then we also do work directly with the Biden-Harris administration, especially on the student loan debt front. We've been leading that charge in coalition with a number of other incredible national partners, and working on a number of issues that are just key to economic opportunity for young folks. So we have worked really hard to build and cultivate partnerships with elected officials and administrations at every level of government, but there's a lot more work to be done. Young folks and young voices are, as I mentioned, regularly not thought of as a top priority, right? There's this misconception that young folks don't turn out to the polls, and that because of that we don't have as much political power. But a lot of our work is dispelling that myth, right? Young folks actually are voting at much higher rates than they ever have in history, and we're expecting that to be the case for this upcoming presidential election as well.
Yeah, I will. When you talk about election, let's talk about Washington. If you go down to Washington, D.C. right now, I guarantee you that if you go into 75 to 80% of congressmen as well as senators, they are filled with young staffers. I mean, a lot of times people think that, the old heads, if you will, they're young staffers that are actually running and really leading government. And so the misconceptions out there, and you got to kind of like do the work to kind of like change the narrative. But do you feel like the narrative is changing now in terms of young adults, in terms of the activism, because that narrative hasn't always been well received?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say it's a slow shift, right? We do have some levels of representation, especially in Congress. We look at people like Maxwell Frost, who's spoken at a student debt cancellation rally in front of the Supreme Court that we helped to organize last year, right? So we do have few and far between examples like this. But as you mentioned, a lot of staffers for members of the U.S. Senate, members of the House of Representatives, are young folks, right, who are also experiencing issues that other young folks do, right? Cost of living in DC is very high. Cost of living here in New York City for people who are part of the local offices of members of Congress is extremely high, right? So we have people here who are dealing with the same issues that young adults in our programs who are students are dealing with, such as the incredibly high cost of housing, right? A hostile housing market here is one of the biggest barriers to economic security, and the ability to create generational wealth. And so, we find that when we do meet with them, we were actually just there last week meeting with members of Congress. They're very receptive. A lot of them have experienced very similar experiences. And they want to hear us out. They know that what our students and what our young folks are saying is true, because they've also, a lot of the time been there. And when they haven't, right, then that's when we get to work doing some education and sharing young adult stories, because those stories really move the needle far better than any statistic or research ever can. And don't get me wrong, statistics and research is absolutely necessary to back up the claims and the policies that we're pushing for. But it's the stories of young adults, it's the lived experiences that they share that change hearts and that change minds and that help us to create the policies that we want to see and help young folks to advocate for those policies in a very passionate, very genuine way.
Yeah. As we wind down on our time together, I got to get this in. What are some of the things that we should be paying attention to? Legislation we should be keeping our eyes out for that are, germane to you and that the public should know.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot that we're working on here in New York City right now. A couple top priority items that I'll let you know that we're working on. So in terms of higher education, one of the big things that we're working towards is called a New Deal for CUNY. And this is a package of legislation which would actually make the entire CUNY system free. We want to see free, high quality education, public education, free, high quality public education for all students who want it. The New Deal for CUNY is a piece of legislation that would make that happen. CUNY used to be free back in the 60s and 70s. It was only actually once they started admitting students of color that they started charging tuition. And so we do a lot of educating about that. The New Deal for CUNY would also help to greatly increase the amount of faculty and counselors, from academic to mental health counselors, across all 25 CUNY schools, which would be huge. Other than that, we're working on a lot of opportunities for students to gain college credit in high school for things like dual enrollment programs or early college programs. We're working on banning legacy admissions here in New York State, right? Especially after affirmative action was overturned. We want to make sure that white and wealthy students don't have an automatic advantage over, their middle class or low income peers, especially peers of color that don't have that legacy of going to oftentimes elite and Ivy League schools. In terms of higher education, we're also working in a lot of ways on increasing financial aid here in New York. We've had some great wins on the TAP program this past year, and we want to continue building on that. And then in terms of healthcare, there's a lot of ways that we're working to expand access to young adults, to young folks and families who are immigrants and going through all different parts of the immigration or asylum seeking process. That's a really key way to make sure that healthcare is a right and not a privilege for folks here in New York State. And then workforce development is top for us, right? So we want to see more jobs. We want to see more paid internships, especially for young folks at CUNY schools, at SUNY schools, at private colleges and universities. And so we're working with a lot of partners to make sure that we can increase those seats, but also do so in a way that's equitable and make sure that students with the least access to those key workforce opportunities, that key experience on that resume, or on their skill set, right, is going to be granted to the students who need it most and historically haven't had that opportunity.
Yeah. Sean Miller, we got to leave it there. Young Invincibles. I got to make sure that I say this, though, because I think I don't want our viewers to just skim past this. When you talk about education, you talk about the CUNY school system. He brought it up. I'll say it again. CUNY was free. It was free to attend until black students were admitted. And when black students were admitted, that's when tuition started hitting CUNY. That's a fact. Check the facts. Sean, thanks for double bringing that back up for me. And it's a fact that we really need to look at and see how we get back to free education all around. Thanks, brother.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care.
All right, now. Taking a quick break. Be back more right after this.